All right, so we'll give people some time to join us. It's rdapdan, and all right, so we'll give people some time to join us. I'm still learning how to use this live feature, and it's supposed to show me a chat window. So if you guys want to chat, but I'm just not too sure how it works. So let's see if I turn down the volume on this. So you guys will have to let me know if this is working. So we'll give everybody a little bit of time. Looks like we got one viewer in there. Whoever's watching right now, if you could try to send a chat. We got Joe Dirt. What's up, Dan? What's up, Joe? All right, so I guess this is working. Oh, it's Edgar. What's going on, Edgar? So what do you guys got going on today? You know, we're going to talk about a couple of little things. Also give you guys an update as to kind of where I'm at and how the whole process has been going. So we'll give everybody a little bit more time. I have no idea how many people will join. Alex Rodriguez, I emailed you, never got an email back. Alex, I'm not sure why. I try to respond to every email. Sometimes stuff gets hit in spam. If you could definitely resend that email. And I've actually got another email that doesn't get quite as much traffic. If you want to try sending it to DWISE, that's DWISE at rdapdan.com. And I'll post that in the description as well. You can always email me, obviously, at rdapdan@gmail.com. But that email has been blown up with just you name it, and I get emails there now. So I'm trying to designate a brand new email for you guys to be able to reach me a little bit quicker so I can screen through them and see the questions you guys might have. So I apologize, Alex. And Alex, actually, if you have any questions while we're in this video, if you feel comfortable talking about it, feel free to post your question on the live chat, and I'll be more than happy to attempt to answer it for you. And as always, I've got my RDAPdan coffee cup. Actually, it's not RDAPdan. This is just an RDAP cup that I received in federal prison for doing something I was supposed to do in RDAP class. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I got this as an award. They don't just give these to everybody. So it's kind of like my Medal of Honor. And I almost lost it the other day. I went to probation. I've got to go to every day being on federal probation, there's a color line. So you have to call this color line. Some of you have probably been on it if you're out on pretrial. And the color line is when they call your color, and you don't know when it is, it's random. So you just have to call the phone number every day. And if you hear your color, that means you have to go in and UA, give a P test. So I went in and I had my coffee cup with me, and I left it, and I freaked out. I literally got home, realized I didn't have the coffee cup. But a friend of mine that actually that works here in our call center now, she had to UA that same day. So luckily she hadn't gone in yet. So she grabbed it and brought it back. So the cup has been returned safe and sound. No ransom needed. So yeah, we're going to talk about, I had a real cool call yesterday. I had a call from a client. His name is Josh, and he called to let me know he had received his sentence, and Josh was looking at some significant time. And when I say significant, that's relative to whoever's getting the time. But for him, it was significant. He was looking upwards towards worst case scenario, 60 some odd months. And he actually ended up getting sentenced to probation. So it doesn't happen every day, but I think it's a good testament to the proper preparation on what can happen if you actually prepare starting earlier versus later. And you're welcome, Alex. I definitely try not to avoid anybody. Alex, you can also call me, 509-434-4695. Shoot me a text message if you like. So yeah, so Josh received 5 years probation. And out of that 5 years, the first 6 months has to be done on home confinement or house arrest. and he's not on GPS. It's just the ankle bracelet basically that is hooked up to your landline in your house, and it just knows when you leave the house and when you enter your perimeter area of whatever it's set up. So I don't know about you guys, but I know I would have felt like I won my case if I had been sentenced to federal probation versus 42 months. So let's talk about that a little bit. I'm actually going to have Josh on the show probably in a week or two. Just got a message from Alex. So give me a minute, Alex, and I'll actually pull this up and I'll read it, and we'll discuss a little bit on this. Let's see, make sure it came through properly. Oh, Alex, we spoke the other day, right? I think was it your wife that jumped on the phone as well? What was that, Edgar? He got probation and your girlfriend didn't get in. My girlfriend. Oh, you mean my girlfriend didn't get probation? Is that what you're referring to, Joe? But yeah, so Alex got straight probation, and we'll wait for this thing. I'm still figuring this whole live chat guys out. So, there's no editing. So you're getting the real deal Holyfield thing here. So we'll kind of figure it out as it goes on. But so Alex got straight probation. He got 5 years probation. He's got to do the first 6 months of it on house arrest. And I think each year he has to do, I think he said like 100 community service hours. So each year of his federal probation, he's got to do 100 community service hours. So I imagine if he finishes his probation, if he finishes his community service early, so let's say he knocks out 500 hours of community service in the first year or 2 years, federal probation can be cut in half. It can be cut down. Basically, after you have finished one complete year on federal probation, from what I've been able to understand from my probation officer and a couple of other probation officers, is you can actually request to have your probation terminated. Obviously, it's not a guarantee, but after a year, they can start putting that ball into motion. So doing things like your community service or restitution, you may have to pay. Putting as much effort into that early on is probably going to pay off towards the end. But yeah, so how cool is that? He got to skip federal prison. He got to skip the federal halfway house. It's like, man, if we could all have that type of luck, that would be amazing. So, and obviously it's not a guarantee, his crime, and I'll let him talk more about his crime when he comes on, but I just want to give you guys like a heads up. So we are going to have him on in the next week or two, and I'll definitely let you guys know as to when we're going to have him on the show, so you guys can actually, ask him some questions. Maybe he's got some tricks up his sleeve that worked really well from him. But I can tell you from the minute that I spoke to Joe back in the day, Joe adhered to what needed to be done right away. When we needed to get into character reference letters, personal narratives, he didn't waste any time on getting me information that we needed. And that's right, Edgar. There is hope. Okay, Alex. Yeah. So yeah, Alex, we'll talk about that in a few minutes as well. I'll pull up your email and we'll discuss it. So you guys got to remember, I'm not an attorney, and I don't have every single answer that you guys may be looking for. And my answers may not always be 100% correct, but I can tell you guys this, that if I'm able to find the answers of what you're looking for specific questions that maybe are new to, the Society of Federal Prison, I'll be more than happy to try to get them answered for you. So I've been out now since October of 2015 is when I was released, and I was sentenced to, for those of you that don't know the whole story, so I was sentenced to 42 months federal prison for conspiracy to distribute oxycodone. Basically, I made the poor choice of deciding to work for a doctor, and the doctor eventually was charged with overprescribing his patients. He was overprescribing Schedule 2 narcotics, whether it be, Roxys, Oxys, Vicodin, Percocets, mostly pain medicine for the most part. I worked there, my girlfriend worked there, my best friend worked there, and then the guys that kind of brought me in, they all worked there. So there was a large crew of us that worked there. We weren't there very long. We were there from really January-ish of 2011 to about May 2011. That's how short of a period of time we were there before it got shut down. Prior to January, I think what really made it look bad for me specifically, and my friend Costa, who was also one of my co-defendants, what made it look bad for us is the marketing that we did prior to the pain clinic opening. So we used to drive around basically to other pain clinics, and we would wait for the patients to leave, and we would kind of like stalk out the patients and chase them down and say, hey, next time when you come to the doctor next month, instead of driving all the way to Florida, because most of these patients were driving from like Kentucky, Ohio area, they're driving all the way down to Florida to go see a pain doctor. So the company that I worked for, East Health Center, and I'll put a link to the actual story online. Maybe you guys want to read that story, but the office that we were working at was in Garden City, Georgia, which is basically right on the outskirts of Savannah, right off of I-95, basically. So it was a shorter distance for these guys to drive so they don't have to go to Florida. So we wanted to try to make sure we had patients the minute we opened our doors. So we'd go to these pain clinics in Florida, the large ones that were seeing 100, 150 patients a day. And as the patients would come out, we would basically wait for them to leave, and we would chase them down and flag them down in the car, like literally driving up next to them, like flashing our lights, waving at them, getting them to pull over. And I'm sure they were freaking out, thinking they were going to get, robbed, or we were the cops, or they didn't know what to expect. But they would almost always pull over, and we would immediately tell them who we were. We had an office in Georgia, and next time, if they didn't want to drive all the way to Florida, they could drive to Georgia, and we would be able to see them. So this is how we did our marketing initially. And RDAP is your go-to guy. Sorry, just reading these text messages. So this is how we generated our clientele out of the gate. And it was very aggressive marketing. And I mean, it was very like cloak and dagger. We literally rented a hotel. I can't remember the name of the hotel, but we rented a hotel that oversaw one of these massive pain clinics in Jacksonville, Florida. And I can't remember the name of the pain clinic, but it was a massive pain clinic. And they saw just, like 150, 200 people every day, steady. They had like 4 or 5 doctors working. There was this giant little business they had going on right there. So we rented a hotel that had like a bird's eye view of their parking lot. So we had one guy in the hotel, and we would take turns. Might be me one day, or might be Constantine one day, or this other guy, Frank, that was with us. We'd watch for people to leave, and then we'd get on a little 2-way radio and say, hey, blue Chevy, 4-door, 3 people in the car heading out right now. So we'd have somebody in the car waiting to pull out behind them and flag them down. So this was our system to generating this aggressive marketing. And it wasn't illegal. We weren't breaking any laws by doing that. But we were, American Pain was the biggest. American Pain was huge. They were actually on TV. How you doing, Kevin? So I think this might have been, was it American Pain? I can't remember. But anyway, so we would chase these guys down. We would tell them, hey, in 30 days, when it's time for you to come back, you should stop off at, and we'd give them the address and tell them the doctor's name. And, the doctor, as long as you bring in proof of what you're used to getting, and you have your prescription history, you've got your valid MRI and all of these things, we'll give you a discount for your first doctor's visit. And, we can get you in and out because, we're smaller starting off. So you're not going to be 100 people waiting, to where you can get in and out seen in 30 or 40 minutes and be back on your way to go home. So it worked really, really well. We did that for about 2 months before we opened, letting people know where we were and things like that. So like the day we opened in late January, whatever it was, there's, a decent amount of people waiting to see our doctor. So anyway, so that went on, and then it was real evident, I should have known better. I should have seen the writing on the wall. And instead of trying to find a reason to justify what I was doing by saying, well, all these people have valid MRIs, all of these people must be in some type of legitimate pain, or else they wouldn't have been able to get an MRI showing something wrong with them. That's pretty much how I justified it to myself. And when the feds came in, the feds didn't see it that way. Basically, the feds made statements right away that we were running an illegal doctor's office. And, I'm not going to sit here and make excuses for what I did, because I definitely knew that a lot of these people had addictions. It was clear. Who drives from Kentucky to Georgia to see a doctor on a regular basis? So yeah, I had an idea, but I thought because we could hide behind the scope of the law that they did have the valid paperwork and they did have their MRIs and they had these things, I figured we weren't breaking any direct law, so there was nothing they could do about it. That was how I justified it to myself to keep moving forward. And boy, was I wrong, because as most of you have unfortunately learned, if you're watching this video, you're probably wrapped up with the feds to some extent, and it doesn't necessarily matter what you think or say. It matters what the feds think or say. And when you go thinking about going in front of a jury, even if you're right, you've got the federal government, you've got probably witnesses that are going to be testifying against you, and you've got a jury. And, we all know if you're going to be on a jury, you can't have a criminal record. So the chances are, if you're on a jury, you just assume, just like most of us used to assume, if you see the news and you saw somebody arrested, you automatically assume they were guilty without really with any proof. And, sometimes people are, sometimes people aren't. But the way we're kind of raised with media and social media and things like that, we automatically jump to a lot of conclusions. At least a lot of people do. I don't want to say everybody. I don't want to use absolutes and put everybody in that bus, but there's a lot of us that do that. So my naiveness to that really kind of fucked it up bad for me, because there was no way I was going to win this. There was no way I was going to win at trial. And this started 2011 in May. And man, you want to talk about a scary day. That was a intense, terrifying, very scary day. We got raided twice. The first time was in May. They raided the house that we had in Savannah, Georgia, which was in a little city called Pooler, just right out. Basically, it's Pooler, Garden City. They're a little outskirts of the city. So we had this house in Pooler that we were renting. I lived there. My girlfriend lived there. My friend Constantine lived there. Basically, everybody that worked for the pain clinic that also lived in Florida at the same time, whenever they were in town, we would stay at this house. We had a decent sized house. It was, nice size, nice backyard, shit like that. So it was a decent house. So they raided the house towards the end of May. Now, I wasn't there when they raided that house, because they had also decided to open up another pain clinic in Atlanta. And I was sent down to the pain clinic in Atlanta it was a pre-existing pain clinic that they were buying the current company out. So they sent me down there to train the people that were already working there to kind of do it the same way that we were running ours in Garden City. So I was down there, and every morning, Shelly was still at the one Garden City. So Shelly's in Garden City. I'm in Atlanta. So me and Shelly used to talk every morning on our way into work together. So I'm calling Shelly and I'm not getting any answer. And I call Constantine and I'm not getting any answer. And I'm just thinking maybe they went to the office early. Didn't think too much about it at that point. Did seem a little weird. I couldn't get a hold of her, but I didn't put a whole lot of thought into it. So a couple hours in, Sean Clark, one of the actual owners of the pain clinic, calls me up and asks if I have been in contact with Shelly or Constantine or anybody else at the pain clinic for that down in Savannah. And I said, no. And he goes, well, I tried to log into the cameras and I can't get into the cameras. So we have, camera system there that you could log in through like an internet IP address, and you could actually see what was going on from like your cell phone or whatever, just to check on the office. So I tried to log in. I couldn't see anything either. So now we start to kind of like wonder, what's going on? Nobody's answering their phones. So right next door, and most of you probably heard this story before because I talked about it in my first couple of videos, or my very first video, but right next door, there was this burger joint called Fatso's Burger right next door to the office in Savannah. So we had a pretty good relationship with the owner over there, this guy named Tony. So I called Tony up and said, hey, this is Dan from the pain clinic. What's going on? He's like, man, where are you? I was like, what do you mean? He goes, dude, they're looking for you. There's about 50 cars out here, cop cars, FBI, DEA, the narcotics division, So I'm just like, oh my God. It all hit me right then and there, what was going on. And I was like, fuck. I didn't know what to do, what to say, what to think. I knew that I needed to get to Florida, to back to Savannah. I was thinking about was like, oh my God, Shelly must be freaking out and terrified. Shelly's never been in any kind of trouble in her life. So I'm just freaking out thinking, oh my God, poor Shelly, poor Shelly. So I go back to my hotel, pack everything up, and decide I'm going to head back to Savannah. So I get a phone call from Shelly, and she just sounds really weird on the phone. She's like, where are you? And she wouldn't really tell me anything. Come to find out, they had her call me on the phone trying to like get my location. Then all of a sudden she just freaked out and couldn't do it and hung up. I knew something was wrong. So then they called back, or I called her and the DEA agent, this guy named Agent Doug Kahn. Never forget him. As long as I live, I'll remember him, because my opinion, the guy's just a straight weasel. But so Doug's on the phone. He's like, hey, bud, just being real nice to me, like trying to keep me cool. He's like, hey, bud, we got your girlfriend down here and everything's all right. She's fine. We just need to talk to you. Where are you at? And I was like, well, I'm in Atlanta and I can be there. But it was already like 3 or 4 in the afternoon. So Atlanta's a good 6-hour drive from Atlanta to Savannah. So I was like, hey, I can get there as fast as possible, but it won't be till tomorrow morning. Is that okay? He's like, yeah, that's fine, bud. Kept calling me bud. And I just remembered thinking to myself, stop calling me bud. That's what I wanted to say. So I decided, as I packed up my car, I was in a rental car. I was in a convertible Camaro that the company had rented me. And as I decided to head back to Savannah, I thought, you know what? Let me go back to the pain clinic real quick. And because I had my paychecks I had cashed over the last couple of weeks. My bank was Citibank, which was only in Florida. So I didn't have a way at that point. It was before like the mobile app and all that shit. I didn't have a way to get money into my bank account unless I was in Florida. So I had a couple of $1,000s on me, and I just went and picked it up. And when I went back to the pain clinic to get it, I got the money, got back in my car, was backing out. I think I was on the phone with Sean, and I heard a tap on my window. And I look over, it's just some dude standing there. And he's like, hey, Dan. And I'm like, whatever, can I help you? And man, that's boom. It came out of everywhere. It was just like little cockroaches popping up, feds, DEA, you name it. They were just jumping out of everywhere, pulled me out of the car. They had a warrant for me out of Savannah because they were looking for me to serve the warrant. So immediately arrested me. And that's kind of how it all started, and then bonded out and didn't actually get indicted till 2013. So from 2011 till 2013, I was out on all of that. So it was just a long journey, man. And then when they indicted me in 2013, because I stopped cooperating with the government at that point, I was like, I don't want to cooperate. I don't want to take your plea. I turned down the plea at that point. They offered me a 5-year plea. I turned it down, and it really pissed them off. Kevin, I read, hold on, American Pain. Did you reply? Sorry, Kevin, what are you asking me? Did I reply to what? So they physically indicted me in 2013, and they came again and they arrested me and Shelly, and just, they act like you're, some terrorist the way they come in, I don't know how many of you guys have gone through that, but that is a very traumatizing experience the way they come in. It's super dramatic. And I can't imagine for those of you that were, when they came and raided your house or whatever they did, if you have kids at home, oh my God. Luckily, my daughter wasn't there. She was at her grandma's house, and she didn't have to witness any of that, because I can't even imagine what that must do to a child when these guys come in with automatic weapons. Kevin, did you reply? The cops. Sorry, Kevin, I don't understand what you're referring to. If you can, whatever the question is, if you can kind of ask it over from start to finish, so I kind of feel where you're at, unless there's an email or something you sent me that I haven't seen yet. So anyway, that experience went through, and I was in complete fucking denial. I was playing the victim role. I felt like they were out to get us. And like, don't get me wrong, I still think there was some area there where it's like, technically, I don't know if a law or not was broken, but man, I knew what I was doing. I knew these people were driving all over the place, and all I was doing was contributing to drugs being out on the street, whether it be pills or whatever. I was contributing to that because I knew a lot of these guys that were coming in, more than likely, probably weren't just using them for pain. They were probably taking them back home and selling them, which means they're selling them on the street. Kids are getting them. People are overdosing. People are dying off of it. People are getting killed over it, fights, you name it. All it does is put out bad karma and bring back bad juju. So going through RDAP really helped me open up my eyes to that. And, not just RDAP, I had an epiphany before I got into RDAP because I was so dead set on getting into RDAP because I knew I could get that year off, that I started really like focusing on what RDAP was going to be about. And I started reading some books, like I have it laying around here. Tony Robbins, Awaken the Giant Within is an amazing book. Like if you guys are looking for some good spiritual, if you guys are looking for some good, like not spiritual religious, but just trying to like bring yourself into a good frame of mind, that is a great book to read because it's very practical. He gives you exercises you can use, and it basically, shows you how to start taking control of your life. So it kind of prepared me for what RDAP was going to be about because it wasn't all of that different from RDAP from what was in that book. So I don't know where the book is right now, but it's probably. Well, that's just crazy. Hopefully somebody didn't jack my book out of the office. So trying to get into RDAP, everybody wants to get into RDAP. Who doesn't want to get into RDAP? Everybody wants the year off. And one of the first things they ask you when you're getting into RDAP is, why are you taking RDAP? And people hide from that question. They'd say things like, oh, better myself, blah, blah, blah. And that's all great. That, honestly, I hope that's true. I hope you do want to better yourself. But there is nothing wrong with admitting that you're taking RDAP partly to get the year off. Don't think you need to hide that, because the DTSs, and the DTS is the drug treatment specialist. Those are like the staff that run RDAP. And then you've got the psychiatrist, the doctor that oversees RDAP. They know this already. They know that people are getting the year off. And of course, who doesn't want a year off? So be honest about that, because it goes a long way. It shows them that you're not hiding anything. Honesty is really what's going to get you through RDAP. And when you find yourself getting hemmed up in some stupid situations, if you're honest about what happened in whatever the situation is while you're in RDAP, that will save your life, because they know at some point people are going to screw up in RDAP. You're going to get in trouble. You're going to get pulled up. You're going to go through the motions. And the biggest thing is taking responsibility for what you did. That shows that you're learning and making progress. So part of RDAP is actually getting in trouble, getting pulled up, pulling up other people. But more importantly than getting pulled up, they want to see how you handle it. What are you going to do next? Are you going to freak out and go in denial and blame everybody? Or are you going to take it on the chin and learn from that and move on so you don't keep making that same repetitive mistake? People have a big misconception of RDAP. Getting into RDAP is a very, very, very small portion of actually completing the program. Getting into it does not mean you're going to get through it. A lot of people don't understand that. RDAP is not a walk in the park. You can sit here and tell yourself that you're going to prepare yourself. You're going to just go through the motions. You're going to do what they expect of you. It's not that easy, because what's expected of you is severe anxiety. And what I mean by that is you are obligated to hold other people accountable, just like they are obligated to hold you accountable. And what does that mean? What does that look like? How do I give you a picture of that? One day we'll do a skit on like a whole like day in RDAP, and I'll have a few guys and we'll do a skit so you guys can see what it's like. But just to give you a quick summary. So RDAP, it's 9 to 12 months long, basically. So if you do it perfectly, you're going to be in it 9 to 10 months. If you do it perfectly, if you mess up, you could be in it for a couple extra months. But so what the average day in RDAP consists of, Monday through Friday, is between roughly 7:30 and about 9 o'clock. Okay. You have a morning meeting, and this is the community. This is everybody that's in RDAP. And that could range from, 50 guys to 150 guys, depending how large of a prison facility you're at and how many people can it can hold for the RDAP class. So everybody that's in RDAP, that you all live in the same housing unit. So for an example, I was at Coleman Low, Florida. Coleman Low, specifically the Low, houses about 25 to 3,000 inmates, 2,500 to 3,000 inmates. Out of that 3,000 inmates, roughly there's about 150 to 160 people at any given time that are in the RDAP unit. So Coleman Low is comprised of a dorm, a B dorm, and a C dorm. In A dorm, you have A1, A2, A3, and A4. So you have 4 units in one dorm. Each dorm holds about 150 guys. So then B house, same thing, B1, B2, B3, B4. C house, C1, C2, C3, C4. C2 was the RDAP unit. So RDAP held about 150 guys. So every morning at about 7:30, you've got to be in your seat by 7:30. You cannot be late to the morning meeting or else you get in trouble for that. So everybody's in the morning meeting, and it's comprised of everybody, no matter what phase you're in, how long you've been in the program, we're all there together. And there's a morning meeting, there's a morning ritual where you stand up and there's a cadence that you say, you do the morning news, and there's always somebody different facilitating. So, and it's facilitated by the RDAP members, people like me, other guys in RDAP. It's facilitated different sections of it. So somebody's going to do the morning news, somebody's going to do the weather, somebody's going to do the upbeat activity of the day. That's like a game. You have to actually come up with a game that you're going to play, and it's got to incorporate other people that are in there that are going to be playing this game. You've got things like word of the day or thought of the day, and you might say, word of the day, progress. What does progress mean to me? To me, progress, and you want to stay in the here and now. You don't want to get lost back in the past, but you want to say here and now. The way I'm working on my progress is I'm getting up every day. I'm staying positive. I'm using the tools that I'm learning in RDAP. I'm practicing objectivity by being open-minded to what other people have to say. And if I continue to do these things, I feel like it's going to allow me to move forward in life without automatically jumping to conclusions. Progress. That's what it means to me. And then people raise their hand, and you'll call on 2 or 3 other people, and then they'll have to say what progress means to them. So somebody does that. The main part of RDAP that people are scared shitless about is the pull-up section. It will be somebody's turn to get up and say, does anybody have any pull-ups today? And you'll see hands go up. They might call on they're going to call on somebody's name, and they're going to say they called me. They called Mr. Wise. That's how everybody's referred to by your last name in there. Mr. Wise, you have a pull-up? Go ahead. So I stand up. Wise, RDAP participant, phase 3. So you're going to tell your name, that you're an RDAP participant, in whatever phase you're in. So let's say I was in phase 3, which is the last phase. RDAP participant, or Wise, RDAP participant, phase 3. This morning, I would like to pull up Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith has no idea he's getting pulled up. He just stands up, and this is in front of everybody. Mr. Smith, today I'm pulling you up. Yesterday on the handball court, I saw you smoking cigarettes with somebody else. I saw you smoking cigarettes with Jim, who maybe is not an RDAP. It was a friend of his outside of RDAP. I saw you smoking cigarettes with Jim, and you're an RDAP. And not only is this an RDAP rule, but this is also a prison rule. Smoking is prohibited. These kind of actions can lead you back down a bad path. These are the type of situations that led you to prison to begin with. You're going to tell him what he's struggling with. So if he's smoking cigarettes, he might be struggling with thinking that he's above the law, thinking that the rules don't apply to him. So you're going to explain this to him. And then you're going to say, Jim, the way I want you to work on this is I'd like you to write a 3-page essay on how this type of action could lead you back into prison in the future if you don't get control of it now. Then people will raise their hands, and they'll usually call on somebody else from like phase 1 or phase 2. Then they have to give them some feedback. And basically the guy getting pulled up, so Jim, the guy that got the pull up, it's very important for him at the end of the whole thing to say, my name is Jim, RDAP participant, whatever phase he is. I was smoking yesterday. I was struggling with thinking that I was struggling with entitlement, thinking that I'm above the law and that the rules don't apply to me. The way this, and he has to recite what I said to him. The way this could affect me in my future is if I'm not paying attention, I can allow myself to make seamlessly important decisions that will lead me right back to prison. and da 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 da. So he goes through all of that, and then everybody else gives him feedback, and he sits down. So obviously, smoking cigarettes is a big one that can actually get him in quite a bit of trouble. So why is this hard? Obviously, what did I just do? Prison rules, right? Snitching and all of this stuff. So basically, I just told on him in front of everybody, putting him on blast. But when you're an RDAP, that is absolutely required that you sign paperwork stating you're going to do that. And if you go through RDAP without pulling people up, you can get in trouble. So now let's flip that back for a minute, right? So I see Jim smoking a cigarette. Let's say that I don't want to tell on Jim, and I'm just going to be like, yo, I don't want to get involved. I'm just going to keep going. But let's say somebody else sees Jim and they pull up Jim, right? So instead of me doing it, somebody else pulls up Jim, and during the pull-up process, one of the DTSs might say, was there any other RDAP participants around? And the guy that did the pull-up might go, well, yeah, Mr. Wise was over there, but he just kept walking. Oh my God, I'm in more trouble than Jim is for smoking the cigarettes, because now I'm enabling him by not holding him accountable. And it's showing that I'm not willing to participate in the program, and I'm not willing to pull people up. If you're a phase 2 or phase 3 member and you get caught doing something like that, it's almost a guarantee setback, if not removed from the program. So the program plays a huge psychological role on you, because you're stuck between, you have to pull people up. You may not want to, but if you don't do it, you could lose your program over it. So now Jim's mad at me for pulling him up, but really Jim is the one to blame, because Jim made that fatal decision of smoking a cigarette and knowing and this could be anything, stealing chicken from the chow hall, cutting in line, swearing at somebody, threatening somebody. It doesn't matter what it is. There's a million reasons why somebody could get pulled up. The most important thing you can do is when you do a pull up is make sure that you accept it and you move on from it, and you don't make the same mistake over and over again. Because if you keep getting pulled up for the same thing, if Jim gets pulled up again next week for smoking cigarettes or doing something else similar, guess what? He's probably going to be either recycled, where you get set back 90 days in the program, or you get removed and you lose your year altogether. So RDAP is no walk in the park. Part of what we do in our coaching process with guys is when they come on, is we actually spend time with them, preparing them, not just for getting into RDAP, but actually what to expect, how to go through RDAP. And then we spend time with them while they're in RDAP, phone calls, emails. Look, there's going to be days where you just want to fucking quit. You want to drop out of RDAP. You start to say the year's not worth it, because it puts you to the test, because you're being watched, not by staff, but you're being watched from other inmates. Inmates police each other in there. That's how RDAP is ran. It's exposing your weaknesses, because you can't pretend to be somebody else 24/7 for 10 months. At some point, people are going to see who you really are, and you just have to I just got to take it. And that was really hard for me, because here I am thinking, oh, I'm a good talker. I understand basic common sense. I should be able to dip right through RDAP, no issues. I almost got knocked over the head so many times. Well, it saved my ass every time I got pulled up. And I made I got pulled up for manipulation. I got pulled up for, just stupid shit that I did to myself. But what saved my ass every time is I was honest. I didn't make excuses. When somebody said, why did I do it? I didn't try to compensate for it. I didn't try to lie about it. I just said, look, I wasn't thinking. It was a stupid decision. I didn't think I was going to get caught, and I would just own it, but I wouldn't make that same mistake again. And I was able to get through RDAP. And because I allowed myself to be so vulnerable in RDAP, it really redefined who I became as a person, because it allowed me to see a lot of my flaws and a lot of my shortcomings. How many of us out there think that, I'm so used to getting what I want. I'm so used to people just believing me. We got through our lives doing this master manipulation, right? And we're thinking we're so good at manipulating people that people don't see it. Well, really what it is in a lot of the cases is people don't like confrontation. What it really comes down to, they probably see that you're full of shit and that whatever you're saying, it doesn't really mean much. But because they're so used to you always doing this, or just exhausted, and they almost give up on you. Well, RDAP doesn't work that way. You don't get to manipulate in there and get away with it. You have to expose yourself and become real. And once you really find out who you are, you start to turn into a better person, because you no longer hide behind this mask that you've created. You let people see the real you. A giant weight is lifted. How many of you guys out there in the past have told a lie before, and you're carrying this lie? Then the minute the truth comes out, it's oh, fuck, thank God that's over, because that's You got to remember whatever the story was. Nobody wants to live that way, and you don't have to. We're all make mistakes, and it doesn't make us bad people. We're going to federal prison doesn't make us bad people. But if you don't learn from it and you don't take something out of this and you come back the same way you went in, chances are you're going to go back. That's why I like dealing with a lot of the clients that I'm dealing with, because I really do. Most of my clients seem to be very open and honest and genuine, and they're not trying to manipulate me into thinking that they're innocent. I'll get clients that, will tell me they're innocent and this and that, and they're caught, blah, 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 blah. But at the end, after we're done talking, I don't buy that shit. I'm not going to sit there and listen to you tell me how you didn't know this and you didn't know that. Come on. We all have some kind of an idea of what's going on. So being honest is the foundation of getting through. It all starts somewhere, right? So start being honest to yourself now. I've got another client, amazing guy, and he's going through a lot. He just got sentenced. He didn't get a long sentence. It was 24, 36 months, long enough, right? So he found out on the day of sentencing that his wife walked out on him with his kids, and his kids are, teenagers. And since he got sentenced, his wife really hasn't had nothing to do with him. He doesn't know where she is, doesn't know where the kids are, and they're not returning any calls, and they're really upset at him. So he's feeling down and sad and frustrated and lonely, and doesn't understand why his kid should understand what he's going through, and this is really hard on him. And it's like, yo, pump the brakes, dude. I get what you're saying, and this is hard, and nobody wants to go through this, but you did this to yourself. You did this to your wife. You did this to your kids. You've now made them victims of what you have done. They're processing it. You have to let them process on their own time. You can't expect them because you want them to be there for you, doesn't mean that they have to be there for you. It doesn't always work out the way you want it to work. So the only thing you have control over is how you act and what you do next. You don't have control over what somebody else thinks or feels. That's where people get lost and confused. They think that just because I feel like I'm sorry for what I did, that you should automatically forgive me and be there for me. Sorry, it doesn't work that way. If it does work out that way for you, more power to you. But we all know, we've all been there. There's people walk away from them. Well, you made that mistake first. So my suggestion to him, and look, he didn't even hire me as a coach or a consultant. He hired another company, and I still email back and forth with him on a regular basis. I'm not just here to make money. I'm here because I like doing what I do, and I see the lost souls out there, and then people just need a little bit of guidance and a little shove in the right direction, because usually once it's exposed and brought up, they're like, yeah, that makes sense. Good advice. So what I've told him to do is, look, stop asking your kids to forgive you. Stop telling them you're sorry. Stop begging them. Just tell them what's going on. Tell them, hey, you're getting ready to go. You're looking forward to taking these classes. And then when you get there, continue to write them. Tell them the classes you're taking, what you're working out, the crazy shit that you see going on in the prison every day, and just keep emailing them and sending them letters weekly. Even if you don't know where they live, send those letters to a mutual friend that can get them the letters. Because at some point, when they're done processing, they're going to want to open up, and they're going to want you back in their life, hopefully. And there's no guarantee to that, but at least you're making an effort to stay in touch, but you're not putting an awkward amount of stress on them where they're not prepared to handle it just yet. Prison's a shaky thing, not just for us, the guy going in, but our family and friends become victims of this because they're going along with it and they don't know what to do. So I guess that's really about it here. And those of you, I will definitely respond to the emails. Let's go back up here and see here. Yeah, Alex, I will respond to your email today, buddy. I apologize. I do have it right now. I saw you email me while we were talking. So guys, don't give up hope. Federal prison is not the end of the world. There can be a lot of good that comes out of it. You can learn who you are. You can meet some real interesting people. You can take classes. You can do things that you never had time to do before. Are you leaving? So anyway, I got to go, guys. So I hope you enjoy this video. Like my channel, subscribe, and I will talk to you guys all later. RDAP Dan, take it easy.